call the City Commission special meeting of August 10th, 2021.
Recording in progress.
Let me try it again. I'd like to call the City Commission special meeting of August 10th, 2021 to order, and I'm going to ask the city clerk to call the roll.
Mayor Weissman.
Here.
Vice Mayor Dr. Marks.
Here.
Commissioner Evans.
Present.
Commissioner Friedland.
Here.
Commissioner Landman.
Here.
Commissioner Narotsky.
Present.
Commissioner Shelley.
Here.
Mr. Wasson.
Here.
And Mr. Wolpen.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you so much. Can we all please stand to say the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under
under
God,
God, indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
for all.
Okay, the first item on tonight's special commission meeting is the second public reading, item number 3. And I'm going to request the city attorney to read the ordinance.
Thank you, Mayor. An ordinance of the City of Aventura, Florida, amending Article 1 in general of Chapter 14, Buildings and Building Regulations of the City Code by creating City Code Section 14-1, Delivery of Engineering Reports, to require the delivery to the city of building engineering reports which reflect building conditions, including structural and life safety components, providing for severability, providing for penalty, providing for inclusion in the code, providing for implementation, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. I will make a motion for the approval of this ordinance. Can I please have a second to the motion?
Yes.
Second made by Commissioner Narotsky. Let me ask the commissioners, because it is second hearing and it is August. Does anyone need the city manager to review the item? If you raise your hand.
No.
I am not seeing any hands. Vice Mayor Marks, are you seeing any hands that I am not?
No, Mayor.
Okay, then I'm just going to ask if any members of the commission have any questions or comments about it. Seeing as there are none, I'm going to open it.
Vice Mayor, Mayor, I had raised my hand.
Okay, I couldn't see it. I'm so sorry. Vice Mayor Marks.
So at our last meeting, we discussed the fact that we were going to change the president's role to appointing an individual who was then going to be responsible for bringing or sending through email or whatever any reports to the city. That's at least what I understood. And there's some new language in here for things that we did not see or discuss last month. And I wanted to talk about that. First of all, I think that when we look at, let's see, it's sentence 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, where it says such person, firm, corporation, or entity shall be included in the term responsible, et cetera. I wanted to ask our attorney, is it clear that this also refers to any community association? Because this is speaking not about community associations necessarily, and I want to make sure that there's no misunderstanding that could be coming out of this. So that's question 1.
I can answer that. The mayor,
All right, let the city manager address it, please.
Mayor, I'm going to let the city attorney answer that.
Okay.
As it was.
I couldn't tell who was speaking. Go
Thank you,
ahead, Mr. Walpen.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yes, this ordinance applies to all community associations, which includes condominium, cooperative, or homeowner association entities. And one of the responsible parties is the president of such associations. However, the president is allowed to shift that responsibility over to a designee on a form that will be provided by the city manager. Once that shift of responsibility to a designee, such as an employee or contractor of the community association, is made, then the responsibility vests upon that particular designee.
Vice Mayor Dr. Marks, does that answer your first question?
Well, he's our attorney, so my question is, are you able to defend that should there be individuals who say, I didn't know that meant?
Yes, this
I
ordinance
think-
is a valid
I think he
ordinance.
just answered that it did.
Okay, so that's fine. Then the next thing is something new that arrived into this ordinance, and that says that the written designation and acceptance of the designation by the designee must be provided to and approved by the city manager on a form which is authorized for use by the city manager. We did not discuss that last month, and I am wondering why we would, I don't want to say this improperly, but why would it be the position of the city manager to have authority over who a sub-association or a building designates? And I would also like to ask Bob Shelley, who works in, who is a member of a large complex.
Excuse me, you can ask a question and any commissioner is free to respond.
That's
But
fine.
this isn't question and answer back and forth. You're stating
Well,
your comment.
I don't understand why, in fact, this was added with no discussion from last month. And I don't understand why the city manager why we are providing that responsibility to the city manager. That responsibility should be on the sub-association, I would think.
Mayor, may I answer that?
Yes, Mr. Walton.
Thank you. The purpose of this is that when the president picks a employee or contractor of the community association, he has to fill it out on a form that's presented to and approved by the city manager. For example, we have to be able to identify who is the designee, what is his or her contact information, and the designee must also sign that form, because it doesn't do any good to designate someone as responsible if the designee refuses to be responsible. But the ordinance allows the designee to be a employee or a contractor. So, for example, if there's a building engineer, that person may be a good designee. If there's another person who's responsible, trustworthy, that could be. Also, if there's an engineering firm already doing work for the condominium, studying things, determining if there's any problems, that firm may be designated as the designee. So that's the purpose of that, and the ordinance was revised immediately after the meeting to comply with the changes made by the commission at first reading.
I respectfully, I beg to differ with you, but that was not discussed. And again, the way the language is written, it says it has to be approved by the city manager. The form certainly can be prepared by the city for, the sub-association to fill out. But the words say approved by the city manager, and we did not discuss that.
Right, if I may, Mayor, the city manager...
Excuse me, Mr. Attorney. I would like to say that I think what they tried to do is capture what you specifically asked them to do at our first reading of this. So now, Mr. Walpin, you can respond.
Well, Mayor, that's exactly correct. I merely created the provisions to implement the changes directed by the commission at the first reading. And the association president will fill out the form, the designee will sign the form, the manager will accept it and approve it, and thereafter, that designee is the responsible party under this ordinance.
Why can't the city manager accept it and remove the word approve?
Because it might be somebody may fill out a form and leave out their contact information. They may list themselves with a name that is incorrect. This is not a complex approval. It's something that'll be able to be done fairly and swiftly.
I respectfully don't agree with that, but you've answered the question that I asked. Item C, we're still talking about 24 hours to turn this around and get it into the city. And I think that anybody who works in any building understands that there are times when there is no humanly possible way we can get it there in 24 hours because they may not have even opened their email.
Any other commissioners wish to make a comment?
Mayor, Commissioner Landman, yes.
Denise, thank you.
Didn't we discuss switching it to 3 days or?
We did, but
Okay.
it's not here.
Okay.
Address that, there was discussion, but when it was pointed out that email may be used, there was no motion to change the 24 hours. Of course, if the commission wants to change the 24 hours to 48 hours or 72 hours, that's up to the commission.
Yes, I move to make that.
Wait a minute, it's not a motion yet.
Okay.
Okay, well, let me just give you the last item, and then we can go back to the 24 hours.
All right, well, 1 minute. I have something to say as well, and so does Commissioner Shelley. So I'm going to say I strongly think when we're talking about safety to life, we don't have a minute to waste. And if there's no possible way, then that one exception, there's no possible way. No law, no rule, no ordinance, no constitutional amendment is 100%. But where time is of the essence, and we see that it was 2 days from the engineer at Champlain Towers, and the city had 48 hours and hadn't responded. And maybe you're right, it's because no one opened their mail. I think that we need to do it as tight as we can, and knowing that reasonableness in this city has always prevailed, I would be very opposed to changing the time, but that's up to the will of the commission. Commissioner Shelley.
Yeah, just a couple of small points. I do agree that I'd like to see the 24 hours to 48 at least. However, one of the issues I'm concerned with is obviously the president will most likely designate an engineer or somebody qualified to understand what they're getting. However, it makes reference in here to penalties 1 through 14 of the city code. And that means that whoever the designee is going to be could possibly be subject to fines if there's a delay, whatever. And this is at the will of the code enforcement officer. I would like to have in here, David, some kind of a grace period that if there is a delay, the fine is not imposed. He has a cure period of even a 48-hour cure period, because in some cases, if there's delays, my concern is we may not be able to find as president somebody who will take this job if they're subject to fines or they have some of these penalties 1 through 14. So I would like to see a little bit leeway on that. I agree with the mayor. We should get this done as soon as possible, but I'd like to make sure we as presidents have the ability to find people who are willing to take on this responsibility if they know that there's all these fines adhered to. So is there something we can do to modify that to make sure that there is that grace period and we're not subject to somebody who had a bad day in the code enforcement that day?
Mr. Walton.
Thank you, Mayor. Our normal code enforcement, which is very well administered through the Community Development Department, already provides for a very good process where warnings are given and compliance is the goal, not penalties and fines. So our normal code enforcement process, Barry Gladding and the other excellent gentlemen we have, they're very reasonable. They want compliance. And then it goes to, if there is a lack of compliance, it'll go to our special magistrate. Barbara Buxton, as you know, does an excellent job on a volunteer pro bono basis. So really, my view is that our code enforcement system is already in place and it provides ample warnings. And we're not looking for penalties. We're looking to protect life safety.
No, David, I understand. I'm saying, is it in the code that there is a grace period to cure the violation, or is it at the discretion of the code enforcement officer?
It's discretion, except that warnings are given unless there's life safety issues.
So could we, in this case, add in here that if somebody's in violation, that if the designee is in violation prior to 1 through 14 going into effect, there is a 48-hour cure period?
That could be added if the commission wants it. If you want my recommendation, I don't recommend that because our system already has in place, proper processes and excellent people that we have.
But
Commissioner
our
Shell-
rules and ordinances shouldn't be based on current personnel because that can all change. But I need some clarification, Mr. Walpen, based on what Dr. Marks and Mr. Commissioner Shelley both said. My understanding of reading this paragraph, which was added, and I'm talking about C, is that it's not the individual that's going to be fined. It's they're representing the association in doing this. So the association is the party that's liable. Am I correct in that interpretation?
Right, in paragraph D, it says the community association shall be responsible for payment of any fine which would otherwise be payable by the president of the community association.
That is what I thought.
May-
Yes, Commissioner Shelley.
No, I'm okay. I'm listening.
Okay.
I'm listening.
Mayor?
I'm looking. Ron, is your hand up?
Yeah, yes. I just
little
wanted
hard
to
to
give
see.
you a little more background on code department. We normally give 5 days of a notice of violation, which gives the person time to do what they have to do to hand something in or to correct something. And normally, if they give you a reason or a reasonable cause of action why it took them a little longer, we normally comply. We take that into consideration. So it's not an automatic, rap on the fist or rap on the hand when they if they don't
All
comply
right. So
right away.
Dave,
One
then
second.
I'm sorry, Mayor. If I may. Then Ron, to clarify, because I'm a little confused. What we're hearing is that right now, if there is a violation, there's a 5-day cure period.
We normally give
Or-
people 5 days to comply once they've been told
All
to
right.
do
So
something.
so then that is part of this ordinance change.
The reason why we don't say specifically, because in the code department, we sometimes run into frequent flyers who take advantage of that. So if they continue to do the same thing and not comply, then we're allowed to make the notice of violation a shorter time period. So
Then
sometimes,
can we do this? Okay, then Ron, can we do this? And the question may be to the attorney. I don't want to make more out of it than it is. If it's the understanding that I believe it is, that the only responsibility this individual has is to ensure that whatever report he receives gets to the city. Is that correct?
That's correct. The sole duty under the ordinance is to get that report over to the city. It doesn't impose
All right,
any
so-
other duty.
Yep. David, if you could just put some kind of language in that in order to cause a violation of this ordinance, it would be solely due to the lack of facilitating the document over to the city within the timely manner of 48 hours or 72 hours, whatever that number is. Is that fair to say? And that way it alleviates any question as to any responsibility they might have had about the content of this report. We're saying this is solely to make sure you get the proper documentation within a certain amount of hours from the time this individual gets it.
Answer that.
Mr. Walpen, do you want to address that or does our city manager?
I can address.
David can.
Okay.
That's the only duty of the ordinance. It's clear under the ordinance, when you receive these reports, the president or his designee has to get them over to the city, either hand delivery or by email. That's a duty. I think it would create confusion to put something else in here, because that's all it does. It doesn't say they have to do other things. They just got to get it over to the bill.
So as the city attorney, you're saying this document clearly states that the only responsibility of the designee is to submit the necessary forms within a timely manner.
That's correct, exactly.
You're saying that, I'm fine with it.
Thank you.
And I would have to say, as maker of the motion, that was entirely my intent, that we
Correct.
protect our residents and this is only in delivering, and then we as the city have an obligation to post.
Then
So
I'm
the
fine.
information is available and it provides for greater transparency.
Yeah, then I'm okay with it.
Mayor,
Dr. Marks.
Yeah, I had one more thing, and then Rachel also has her hand up, Commissioner Friedland. My other thing is, which was also not discussed at the last meeting, it was supposed to be, we talked about this being sent in on an email, and all of a sudden, it says in here that if an engineer's report is hand-delivered, it shall be hand-delivered to the offices of the city's chief building official and city manager in both digital and hard copy for compliance with this section. I have a couple of questions. Number one, how does one hand-deliver a digital format? Why aren't you sending that digitally? And number two, why does it have to go to the city manager and, actually I have three questions, and the city's chief building official? Why isn't it going to one specific location and whoever gets it is then distributing it accordingly? And then number three on this whole situation is, and where is there some discussion about, are you going to get a receipt when you bring this? Are you going to know that you've turned it in? There is no discussion. There's a very one-sided document.
I can answer that, Mayor?
I don't think there was a question, but go ahead, Mr.
Okay.
Attorney.
Just to make it clear, the concept which I discussed with Kevin Klopp is that it's easy just to scan and email. However, if someone insists on hand delivery, then to enable the city to download certain information onto its website, we need the digital copy, which would be whatever format is used at the time, whether it be a flash drive or other software item. It's not a complex thing. If a person, all they would have to do is say, please confirm you've received this. The city gives a receipt if required. We don't put that in an ordinance. Likewise, if people send emails, there's a system on there where you could document that it has been received if anyone has a concern about that. And the city manager has a duty to implement the ordinance, but the chief building official is on the front line of being aware of building conditions. So even in the initial draft of this, where the document was to be provided, we've always provided chief building official and city manager.
It didn't say city manager in the last ordinance, David? Did it?
Please, you have to be recognized. I have to run the meeting by Robert's rules. Do I see your hand? Dr. Marks, is your hand up?
No, Rachel had her hand up.
Okay, you were talking though.
Okay. I'm
Commissioner Friedland.
I was just going to say before, and I think the attorney explained, I think it would have been duplicative to add a repetition of the fines or curing effects. I think it was unnecessary. And it does have in section 6, the implementation, the city manager is authorized to take any action which is necessary. So I think that kind of covers us for anything that needs to be carried out. I don't think that it's a problem. I don't really want to delay us moving forward with putting this into action by changing the time from the 24 hours to 48 hours. That's my concern.
Okay, I would just like to say, and it's my personal opinion, that I appreciate that it's being hand delivered to two different departments. It provides for redundancy. And if there's one lesson we should have learned, that without redundancy, things fall through the cracks. So again, knowing that the whole purpose of this ordinance is protecting the lives and safety of our residents, I'm happy with them delivering. There's not an engineer I know of that doesn't work in some kind of digital format. And it's as simple as hitting the button to send it. So, again, and because we've never been able to keep record of it, we have no background of how many structural engineering or safety to life issues come in prior to a 40-year inspection. So there are two benefits, really. This will help ensure safety, and we'll get information on structural issues in buildings from day one of occupancy. So there will be other sets of eyes looking at this and hopefully identifying challenges and problems before they become big problems. Anyone else? And then I'm going to go back to Commissioner Landman. Anybody else? All right, I don't see any hands raised, so I'm going to go to Commissioner Landman.
Okay.
So I wanted to make the motion to, and from what I'm here, I'm not sure everyone's going to agree to it, but maybe we can reach a happy medium of 48 hours, at least to submit the report within 48 hours.
Please let me know what the wording is of your,
So
Motion.
make a motion to adjust section C, page 2 out of 5, where it says the engineer's report described in paragraphs A and B above shall be filed with the city officials listed above within 48 hours of receipt of said engineer's report by the responsible person, to amend
Okay,
that to 48 hours as
so am
opposed to
I right
24
in saying,
hours.
am I right in saying the only thing you're saying is cross out the 24 and make it 48?
Correct.
Okay.
I'll
Can
second
I
that.
have a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Commissioner Shelley.
Okay.
Anybody want to talk on the motion? In the commission, anyone? Commissioner Narotsky.
You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Yeah. I was just going to say that I was told by the old mayor that you speak with your vote. But since you asked to talk about it, I just think that the 24 hours, it sends a message, and we're putting the strictest thing, because first of all, God forbid something should happen. On the human level, when you have the 24 hours, it's kind of like part of the process. They're not concluded with a report until they send it in. Once you have a gap in there, it's another task that's far off. I like the 24 hours because it's part of the process, and it's disgusting to even discuss, but the political fallout, like, we have to do everything we can to protect the city and make sure that we're doing everything possible we can, both on the moral front and the political front. That's why I think we should keep it at 24 hours.
Anyone else? Okay, then, Mr. Attorney, I believe I'm going to ask the city clerk for a roll call vote on the amendment
Correct.
to the ordinance, which is paragraph C, line 2, changing the 24 hours to 48 hours.
And Mayor,
One second, I'm waiting for
Well-
the attorney to opine.
at the end of it, there's another 24 hours. So, Mayor, there's a second 24 hours within that. So
Okay,
it would have
wherever
to
the
be-
24 hours is to provide consistency, that it would be changed to 48.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Attorney, I said, at this point,
Yes,
do
you're
I
correct,
have the
Mayor.
city clerk do a roll call vote?
Roll call vote on the amendment.
Or do I
Correct.
have to open it to public comment?
Not necessary. You'll open it after the action on the amendment, then you'll
Okay.
open the whole ordinance as amended or not amended. Thank you.
Okay, so we're only voting on the amendment, and it changes in paragraph C, both lines, the 24 to 48. Can I ask the city clerk for a roll call vote?
Commissioner Evans,
Yes.
Commissioner Friedland,
Yes.
Commissioner Landman,
Yes.
Commissioner Narotsky,
No.
Commissioner Shelley,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dr. Marks,
Yes.
and Mayor Weissman.
No.
The motion passes.
Okay. Now, let me go. I think we finished all questions from the commission on the ordinance. I said I would go to Commissioner Landman last. So now I'm going to open up the entire ordinance as amended for public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to address it, please raise your hand or walk to the podium, lectern. Seeing as there are no one that wants to address this item, I'm going to ask the city clerk for a roll call vote. on the
Commissioner,
ordinance.
Commissioner Evans,
Yes.
Commissioner Friedland,
Yes.
Commissioner Landman,
Yes.
Commissioner Narotsky,
Yes.
Commissioner Shelley,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dr. Marks,
Yes.
and Mayor Weissman.
Yes,
The motion passes.
thank you. The next item of business for tonight is item number 4. It's an ordinance on first public reading, and I'm going to request the city attorney to read the ordinance.
Thank you, Mayor. an ordinance of the City of Aventura, Florida, amending Article 1 in general of Chapter 14, Buildings and Building Regulations of the City Code by creating City Code Section 14-2, delivery of engineering reports concerning commercial buildings, to require the delivery to the city of building engineering reports which reflect building conditions, including structural and life safety components, providing for severability, providing for penalty, providing for inclusion in the code, providing for implementation, and providing for an effective date.
Okay, I will make the motion for approval of the ordinance, and I'll ask for a second. Seconded by Commissioner Shelley. I'm going to request, and remember, this is first reading, so I'm going to request the city manager to thoroughly review the item.
Thank you, Mayor. As in the first ordinance, this one is reflective in an effort to make sure that commercial buildings follow the same procedures as residential buildings, and that if they do get engineering reports on life safety items such as structural engineering, structural issues, electrical issues and such, that they would, similar to residential buildings, have to forward that report to the city, to the manager's office, and to the chief building official. The same the same requirements that we just approved would be in this the same document, the same ordinance.
Okay, I've got a question for the attorney. Since we passed an amended first ordinance changing the 24 for 48, that has not been changed in this ordinance. Do we need to vote on that separately?
Thank you, Mayor. If the consensus of the commission is to revise that 24 to 48 for consistency and uniformity, you may ask the commission to confirm that.
And by a vote or by a hand?
By hands will suffice on this.
Okay, those of you videoing, if you'll give me a thumbs up if you're in favor of making the 24-48, and if you're sitting at the dais, if you will raise your hand. I see Rach, 1, 2, okay. It unanimously passed, unanimously. Okay, it's open for any members of the commission, any questions on any part of this item? Rachel, is your hand up?
No,
No?
Mayor, it's not.
Okay, it's a little
Thank
hard.
you.
Okay, I don't see any hands. So I'm going to close the item for comments by members of the commission, and I'm going to open this ordinance for comments from the public. Anyone in the public wish to address the commission on this item? I see none. I'm going to close the item for public comment, and I'm going to ask the clerk for a roll call vote.
Commissioner Evans,
Yes.
Commissioner Friedland,
Yes.
Commissioner Landman,
Yes.
Commissioner Narodsky,
Yes.
Commissioner Shelley,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Dr. Marks,
Yes.
and Mayor Weissman.
Yes,
The motion passes.
thank you. The next item, and really last item, and do any commissioners have any reports or items they would like to address in this forum? Vice Mayor Dr. Marks.
I just want to mention that the Aventura Marketing Council held a meeting where some of the people from Surfside, some of the officials from Surfside came and spoke. And it was very moving to hear what they said. But the most important thing I think that I heard was the fact that they said they had posted throughout City Hall, residents first. And I think that that's such an important thing to always keep in mind. And I just wanted to mention that that was discussed. I think it's got to be critical for us to always remember as well. And they're just going through a very hard time because they can't get on the site, and that makes things very hard for them.
Anyone else?
And one more
Dr.
thing,
Marks.
Mayor.
Yes.
And I don't know, I don't think this is the right place, but I'm just going to bring it up because time is kind of the essence on this. I know we also serve as the governing board, and there's such concern about whether children in the elementary school should be wearing masks or not, and I just...
Okay, excuse me for interrupting you, but what I respectfully asked is that we hold those questions till we have our other meeting, which is in a couple of days, I think.
We have another
Tuesday.
meeting? Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tuesday,
Oh,
10
sorry, I
a.m.
didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I would strongly ask all of my fellow commissioners to do your research on the item and on the question and look at other parochial schools, private schools, public schools, all 3 counties, maybe 4 counties. And I think we will all come very prepared for that meeting.
Mayor, may I address a technical point here? I would respectfully request, because we need to have 4 people in person, that we keep the same setup, meaning I'm asking those of you who are there physically today to please be there on Tuesday. If you could.
Well, I
just
think
as a
Commissioner Shelley said that he will be there in person.
Okay,
I'll be
good.
there.
Thanks,
I'll
Bob.
be back.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I think that Commissioner Lamb, are you going on vacation?
No, but
Me? Yeah.
No, I wasn't talking, no. I think we'll be fine.
Yeah.
And it's a
Okay.
very
You know
good
what I
point.
mean?
I'll be
Yeah.
on Zoom.
Okay.
Very good point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, with that said, if there's nothing else for tonight, then I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Denise? Commissioner Landman made the motion. Second,
Second.
Commissioner Narodsky. Everybody have a safe night.
Have a great day. Have a good
Safe
night,
few
everyone.
days. We'll see each other very soon.
Tuesday.
Tuesday.